Quan Yeomans, welcome to Australian Musician.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Going way back with Regurgitator, you met Ben on a bus?
Not technically, no. What happened was I was in a band, a fusion punk band with some crazy people who were all on heroin and I didn't know. He started dating the singer. I'd heard about his band, Pangea. We were quite big in the Brisbane scene, not so much interstate, but definitely big in the Brisbane scene. I think we may have supported them. I kind of wanted to meet him and he kind of was interested in me because he'd seen my band play. So he came over one day to my mum's house to score pot off my mum because she was a smoker back then, and he came with Vic, who was the singer from that band. They were hanging out together, and then he popped his head downstairs and I just happened to be working on a 4-track machine playing some of the early riffs from our band that would later become Regurgitator. And he said hello then. That's really the first time I met him properly. Yeah. And then we met later again on a bus because we lived in the same area in Brisbane.
Were you both into similar music back then?
No, to be honest. There were a couple of bands that we did have in common. We were both kind of sort of into Primus, weird kind of, he was more into the reggae side of things, Bad Brains. He loved Bad Brains, introduced me to Rock for Light, records like that, and a lot of eclectic stuff as well. And I was more listening to hip hop, and Martin, our first drummer, was kind of the bridge in between because he introduced us to a lot of different other stuff as well.
Yeah, I believe earlier you were inspired by classic rockers like Zeppelin and Hendrix.
Me personally as a guitar player, yeah.
Yeah, but then who were the artists, sort of the quirky electronic artists that set you down that path?
I think Martin really introduced me to The Prodigy. At that time, music for the Jilted Generation was just coming out there. Chemical Brothers, same kind of era. So he got me into that. He also got me into The Chronic by Dr. Dre. And those were kind of really interesting records for me to listen to at that point.
Yeah. Who are you currently listening to that you're really enjoying?
The only couple of bands that I've really gone, I quite like them. There's a few Indigenous kind of rappers that I'm really into. Barker is really great, and JK, who was on our last record, I really have a lot of respect for. I also like Tasman Keith a lot. I really like the Bad Nerves band, who are actually playing, I think, next week, but I'm not going to go, unfortunately. I really like their last couple of records. I think they're a really great punk band. And also, I do like Turnstiles stuff. Like, they're the modern kind of rock bands that I quite like at the moment. Yeah,
you're touring with Dem Mob?
We are, yeah.
What made you choose those guys?
We saw them play in a rural show. It was like a barbecue joint. Where was that? I think possibly in the Adelaide area, like in South Australia. They're from the APY area. Lived there for a long time. A few of them moved to Adelaide. I just saw them and I felt like they had something that I'd not seen before, and I really liked the vibe. They're lovely guys as well, so yeah.
Yeah, just going back to the history thing again, I used to work at Juke magazine, and a guy named Michael Parisi used to come in and try and flog his Warner records to us.
Yeah.
What's the Michael Parisi story in regard to Regurgitator?
So Michael and Ben, my bass player, had a relationship because of Pangea. He was looking at Pangea to sign, and I was doing an SAE course in Brisbane. This is pre-Pro Tools, pre-digital. It was all on tape. I learned nothing, except maybe how to roll a lead correctly. But I did a demo tape with Benjamin and Martin, and that demo tape, Ben decided to take to Parisi, and he listened to that, and he was like, actually, I prefer to sign this band. And obviously Pangea were disappointed about it, but that's ended up being our 5-album deal with Warner because of that tape and Benjamin's relationship with Michael Parisi. At the time, Michael was a bit of a cowboy, and I didn't feel like I could trust him particularly well. I have since met him in the last few years because he lives in Melbourne, and he's moved on and he's much kind of cleaner, I would say, and we get along great. Like, our relationship now is much more like satisfying than it was back then, to be honest.
Who came up with the band name, and what were some of the names you rejected?
Ooh, that's going back way too far. I can't actually recall what other names I think we sat around with a dictionary, to be honest. It was at that stage. All I know is that there were a lot of bands, like all of our other bands ended with OR as well, or like an or sort of sound. So it must have been a thing back in the Brisbane kind of punk metal scene. So we chose that name, I think, because it sounded like a shit metal band, even though we were not really ever going to play that style of music. And that's kind of worked for us and against us, I think.
Yeah. The 90s was a different time for the music industry.
I would say so.
What were the positive elements of that period that you wish you could get back?
Well, I don't know. I don't know if I'd ever wish to get back things, but it was great in the sense that Brisbane was reaching that burgeoning stage where a lot of cities hit around 1 million, and everyone kind of within a creative scene knows each other, so it's easy to connect, it's easy to meet people. You can meet people on buses, you can kind of go to gigs and meet people and network that way. Obviously, it's not that way now. It's more about internet connections and finding people that way and having to promote yourself that way. So I don't like that aspect of it. It seems unnatural to me. I did like that aspect of what we grew up with, in the sense that it was word of mouth. You went to see a band, you liked them, you told your friends about them, you got the records. So I do kind of miss that, but on the other hand, it's the way it is now. It's cool.
Yeah. Paul Curtis is your current manager?
Yes, he has been
what's your
since the
management
very
journey
first.
been like? And
He's amazing. I mean, he has been there since day one. He's never ripped us off. He's a real socialist. So he's pretty right on about everything. We pride ourselves on like looking after the people that we're with. He is a crazy character though. He's not easy to work with for a bunch of different reasons, but he's also incredible to work with for a bunch of other reasons. So we're very, very lucky to have had Paul since the beginning, and he's always stood by us and always done it for the right reasons. So incredibly lucky, considering some of the stories I hear that just destroy bands because management or promoters just rip them off. It's terrible, the stories you hear. That's never happened to us, so we've been super lucky.
yeah. Like many other Australian bands, you've played and recorded overseas.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have an international record company story about how they fucked you over like everyone else?
Not really. I mean, we always had very low expectations. We were, I mean, you know, there were moments that were funny. We had the guy who had just finished Dookie, the record for Green Day. He happened to be on. They were label mates in the States, and he came over for some like promo thing and he said he'd drop in and you know, produce a little bit on that unit record that we did. He literally arrived jet lagged off his tits, and we had our studio was a building that was about to be knocked down in 3 weeks. We had covered it in carpet underlay. It was shit, right? And we had a piss-stained we didn't even have a couch. There was a piss-stained mattress on the ground. So whatever his name is, I can't even remember what his name is. He passed out on that piss-stained mattress because he was so like jet-lagged, woke up in the middle of, I think, Everyday Formula, one of the songs we were working on, said, turn up the guitars 20%, and then passed out again. And that was his contribution to the record. I've loved touring in Japan. All the East-West people in Japan were really lovely to work with. There were some odd moments where they'd parade us into the company and everyone would get up off their tiny desks and bow and stuff, and we kind of wander out again. So there were some weird cultural moments, but they were always really lovely. What was embarrassing sometimes was the Australian reps would go over with us and just make absolute disgusting mockeries of themselves, like, you know, ask the East-West Japan people if they knew where they could get whores and stuff like that, you know, just disgusting behavior. And that was embarrassing for us and embarrassing for the Japanese people. But apart from that, we always made the decision to be careful internationally, because at that point a lot of bands would make money here and then go overseas and just waste it all touring, because it was a bit of an uphill battle at that stage. There was a lot of bands that came after us that really paved the way and made it huge overseas, but at that stage it was tricky. So I remember declining the Green Day tour on the following record. So that was a huge tour, and I said no, I want to stay, because I was in a long-term relationship and I didn't want to fuck it up. So my bandmates were pretty pissed at me at the time, but I'm kind of glad that we didn't do that.
Yeah. You did accept the Kiss tour?
It was just the one show.
Or the one show?
Just the one show. We did do a couple of side shows with Weezer, who were touring with them at the time.
Yeah. Memories of the Kiss day?
Not much. We kind of just realised what a money-making machine they were. And it was kind of like just on another level, like a completely... Our reality's here, and it's been up there since the 70s. I believe we knew someone who was working on the show, and they had requested that a blonde girl of under 30 would meet with them and take them around, and she is this hardcore lesbian, and she said, no, sorry, you got me, that's it, deal with it. So there's definitely some moments from the 70s that just move with them forever, and they're kind of stuck in that world. I remembered that they were selling guitars. You know, they do this kind of like, they set up a tiny little studio and just to talk about selling their signature guitars, and I think they'd made like $150,000 before the gates had even opened, just selling those things. So, you know, real insight into that machine, but something that we're just not interested in getting involved with at all.
In general, how does a Regurgitator song come about these days, and how has it changed over the years?
I think it really depends on, when we first started out, there was a lot of kind of friction between three very disparate characters. Obviously me, Martin and Ben were very, very different, very young, very argumentative, and a lot of great creativity comes from that friction. And as you get older, we've been in this band for over 30 years now, we're more like a family. So it's very much like no one really steps on anyone's toes. We're much more forgiving when it comes to songwriting. It's generally a lot more separated. People will come with a fully formed song, or more or less a formed song, and say, oh, what do you think? And everyone's quite nice about it. Back in the day, it was more like you're fighting for the idea. And I think you write better songs because of that reason. So I would say it's much more easy to be in the band now, and we can tour for longer and play great shows. I think we play live way better than we ever used to, but I think we write shit music compared to the early days in lots of ways.
Last time I spoke to Ben, he told me that you use the Jimmy Webb style of songwriting sometimes. You start with a title.
I generally do that, yes. And I generally I will set myself 6-7 songs for the record, and they'll generally stay that way. If I've got a title and an idea that's strong enough, I'll make that song work. Whereas he is more of I'll write 40 songs and then pick 5 or 6 out of those that I'm happy with, or that survive the kind of filtering process.
Yeah. How important is it to use a song to actually say something?
Oh, to me, every song says something to me. Whether it says something to someone else is another question. But I always want to say something. If I had nothing to say, then I would write a song about saying nothing, which I already have. So it's important for me to express myself through that in a, not literal, but in a conceptual way, for sure.
Yeah. Your home studio, tell me about that.
It's very simple. It's the heart of it is a very powerful Mac Studio Pro machine. I do a lot of video work and animation work, so it needs to be able to handle all sorts of things. I run Studio One PreSonus as my main DAW. I let go of Pro Tools a long time ago, and I've never looked back. I love it. And I have very little outboard gear. I use UAD Apollo 8s to basically get all my stuff in. I've got 2 of them, and I use the preamps in them. That's it. I used to have like Avalon stuff and a whole bunch of analog kind of keyboards and stuff. I just gave it all away. I just could not be bothered with the upkeep of it.
Yeah. Having a home studio, is that both a blessing and a curse? You know when to finish a song?
I never know when to finish a song. Like you hear mentioned, you don't really finish anything, you just abandon it, right? That's the way it is. Or someone else says, that's enough, let it go. And you're like, oh, I'm still working on it in the back of my head like 10 years later, you know? Oh, I could have done this, I could have done that.
What about live? Do your songs develop at all?
We don't really get it, because we all live in disparate, we live at disparate ends of the country. It's very hard for us to get together and jam on a song for a long period of time. I think we would benefit from that, to be honest, before we went into recording studios and did it. But a lot of the time it just happens that, you know, Ben's in Brisbane, Peter, our drummer, is in Sydney, and me and the keyboard player are now in Melbourne. So it's very rare that we get the opportunity to get together and work on songs together.
Yeah. So on this current JUKEBOXXIN tour, it's a 4-piece?
Yes.
Yeah.
Sarah Lim is the keyboard player. Peter is our drummer. He's been drumming for over 25 years. He's still a new guy though. But
you guys have been no strangers to technology over the years. Have you had many technological nightmares on stage?
Oh yeah, some great ones. The very first time we were playing as a 4-piece was just, I think, after Art, the 3rd record came out. There was just too many keyboard things, so we thought we'd better tour with a keyboard player. We got a guy called Shane Rudkin, who's a lovely guy, but really anxious. We call him Shaky Shane because he just would shake like that. And then, you know, as soon as he got about that close to keys, his hands would somehow kind of solidify. But we were playing a very first show with him and Peter Actually, no, it was the very first show with our new drummer, Peter, after Martin had left. It was the ABC Australian Sports Awards on live ABC TV, one shot. We were playing a song called Happiness that has backing that was all on S2000 samplers, and Shane was to trigger everything off them. We walk onto the stage, Dawn Fraser is sitting right in front of us, Ian Thorpe's there, and, you know, Kieran Perkins is sitting there or whatever. It was insane. And then we start the song, and as we're walking out, Shane trips over all of the power chords to the sampler, rips them all out. We have no backing, so we're just playing the song just as a three-piece with nothing behind us, no orchestrators, or no orchestration or anything. And there's a thin veiled like prop on stage where you can see his shadow and my manager's shadow just frantically trying to fix things while we're playing live in front of all these like sports legends. Terrible.
So can we find that on YouTube?
I'm not sure, actually. I've never looked for obvious reasons.
You said recently in another interview you don't expect or enjoy a perfect show. What's the loosest show you've ever played?
Oh man, we played some pretty loose ones. It was pretty loose in Sale. We did like a matinee show, and I think Ben actually took a piss break in the middle of the set, and I broke a string, and I think Peter broke his bottom head on his snare. So it's just like, we're so unprofessional on stage, and I think people come for that reason. It's a little different to going to see a really slick performance that you expect from a band that has the experience that we have. But I think people are used to it now, and I prefer that people see us as, you know, really real humans that make mistakes and don't really care, as long as we smile and enjoy and exchange a positive energy with people. That's the most important thing to us.
Yeah. Tell me about your stage setup.
Stage setup, I haven't used live amps for about, God, it have to be close to 10 years now, I think. So I had a Helix on a pedal board that I used for amp simulation and all the effects, and I recently upgraded or side graded. I haven't really decided yet, but I got a Neural DSP Quad Cortex, and I'm just getting my head around it, my feet around it now. But it seems to be fine. And our mixer has been very, very instrumental. Greg has been really great in introducing us to new monitoring gear. So we use in-ears. We've used those for about 10 years now as well, and they've been amazing for vocalizing and just being able to hear yourself properly. So we're quite used to it now, and we love it.
Yeah.
And our bass player's just recently got himself an anagram, so he's finally let go of his bass cab and seems to be quite happy about it as well. But that took a long time.
Yeah. First time you used the in-ear monitors, was that a bit weird?
It's always weird the first time, but Greg is so on top of it that he really encouraged us to go with it, and yeah, we all got used to it eventually, and it's so much better.
Yeah. What's the guitar that you're using on stage?
I moved away from Fenders and Gibsons. I was using Fenders mostly for a while there, and I found Ernie Ball Music Man guitars, and I just fell in love with them. So I got a secondhand Albert Lee, which is mint green, which I love, and I had to shave the neck though, because it was a little too thick. I prefer a flatter. I grew up playing Ibanez like guitars, so I really like a fast wizard kind of neck. Not that I'm a shredder or anything, but it just feels more natural to me. So I had to shave the neck on that one, but it's a great guitar. And I also had a Mariposa, a deluxe Mariposa signature model. I tend to like signature models for some odd reason, so I tend to buy them.
Yeah. You're not really a jam band, you're more like an electronic Ramones.
Yeah, you could say that.
In that, well, it allows you to play a shitload of tunes in the set list.
Yeah.
How many songs do you rehearse up for a tour?
For this tour, because it's a singles tour and we have a lot of singles, I didn't realize we had over 50. We're obviously not playing all of those because that'd be a 2.5 hour show, but we managed to cull it down to about 36, and it's about an hour and 55 now, which is pretty hectic for us because there's a lot of songs and a lot to remember. But yeah, there's actually not that many on backing, strangely enough. There's a lot of live performances of songs that would normally have on backing.
Yeah. So is the set list set in stone, or is there some flexibility?
I mean, yeah, we're not a jam band, like you said. I think Ben would like it more if we were, but he has other outlets for that sort of stuff. I prefer it to be a little bit more set because I tend to have a few more songs to know and remember, and there's a lot of lyrics in a lot of my songs. So.
Yeah, it's a long tour that you're on. Who's in charge of the playlist in the car or van?
We tend to leave it to the driver. Generally, they have priority. Slim loves everything metal, so everything from like really obscure metal. She flies all over the country to see bands that I've never heard of. Like she went to the Sydney Opera House last week to go see Opeth, which is some Swedish metal band that I'd never heard of. But there's always something going on, so she would listen to metal just constantly in the car. But she also likes goth kind of vocal sort of stuff and ambient stuff, and Ben's the same. He likes goth sort of stuff and 80s stuff, and so yeah, it's an eclectic mix. But occasionally we do that Baker's 13 where you have to listen to the one song 13 times in a row. I don't know if you've ever done that in the car, but yeah, we do that occasionally, which is kind of fun.
You've got a lot of dates, something like 50 dates.
Yeah, over 50.
On this tour. Do you enjoy playing that much, or is it a necessity to make a buck?
I don't know if it's a necessity to make a buck. We're very kind of conservative with our budgets and we play it fairly safe, and we're very lucky in the sense that we still have an audience that will come out to see us and enjoy the show. So it's not that much. We want to give back to the audience and make sure that they get something new, and it's a very long show. It's very unusual for us to play this long. Normally our shows go from 45 to maybe an hour and 15 at the most. So there's a lot of songs that people wouldn't have heard for a long time, and I think it's kind of cool that we're doing that. The amount of shows is just something you have to work up to. I think physically, especially when you get over 50, you kind of have to be careful to pace yourself. So there's that aspect of it. But yeah, there's a lot of energy. There's a lot of punk music still being played, so you have to be careful to pace yourself. Yeah.
What do you guys do in the moments before you hit the stage?
I usually drink throat coat, which is a slippery elm tea, and I take a lozenge, so I manage to hold onto my voice for most of the tour, hopefully. Stretching is super important. Drinking plenty of coconut water to stay hydrated, and a little bit of warm-up with voices, but not much. We're pretty slack with that sort of stuff.
Yeah. Have you ever played any cushy corporate gigs?
I would never describe them as cushy. Weird, for sure. I think the weirdest one we've ever done is like a pharmaceutical conference. I don't know why we said yes to it, but yeah, they were munted and just really weird. Corporate people are just weird, okay? They're from another world. We say yes very occasionally, and it's usually because it's a fan of the band who happens to have connections to the corporate world, and we go, okay, that's fine. We'll do it, and we regret it.
Yeah. If someone kidnapped you, tied you up, put headphones on your head, what recording would be your worst nightmare that you had to listen to?
Oh man, that's not really fair. I mean, anything middle of the road is pretty hard for me to deal with for a long period of time. Yeah, I'm not going to name names because I'll get in trouble for that.
What's the future hold for Regurgitator?
Oh, I don't know, to be honest. I never know what the future holds. I assume we'll keep going for as long as our mental health can hold together, and everyone still wants to do it, and it's still fun, because it is still fun, especially on stage. We have a ball, and we'll probably record something, hopefully in here, this wonderful studio, Empire. It's incredible. But we haven't been in the studio for a long time, so I don't know. That would be kind of a nice thing to do for a change. Yeah, I would expect another record in the next year or two.
And what are you most proud of in your music career?
Most proud of? I don't know if I have a lot of pride in what I do. I love what I do, and I'm very, very thankful for what I do. But to say that it's really funny. We did a countdown anniversary thing recently, and I got to meet Kate Sobrano and Marsha Hines, both really lovely characters. And I went over to Kate and said, I really get your song Bedroom Eyes stuck in my head all the time. I don't know why. And she was like, yeah, it's a killer tune, killer track. I'm like, I really respect that. I love how positive and how prideful she is of her stuff, what she does, but I would never ever say that to anyone. I don't have that personality. It's kind of more of an old school personality, that I think, to be so, proud of what you do.
So why should people go and see Regurgitator on this jukeboxing tour?
There's no reason that I can give. You go if you want to go. If you want to see something chaotic, slightly chaotic, something a little slightly silly, something that's upbeat that will hopefully make you smile and sweat a little bit and hang out with your friends and have a bit of a nostalgic trip. If you grew up listening to us, you might enjoy that trip down memory lane. The nostalgia thing is strong in people, and I've come to understand that a lot more as I've gotten older. So yeah, come for that reason, if nothing else, just hang out with your friends and hang out with us.
Yeah. Quan, thanks for your time.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.